Good morning, everyone. In this video I want to bring you my full and updated tier list for Tekken 7 online matches. I've made a list like this before, but looking back at it, I don't think it's perfect. I found a couple of places where I disagree with myself, and it also didn't include all the characters. There were a couple of characters where I didn't feel confident enough in my knowledge about them to place them anywhere specifically. But as the months have gone by, I've watched many great tournaments, spent a lot of time online, and I've been making my character guides to, gradually improve my knowledge of the roster. And so my view of what the tier list should look like has sort of evolved, and so I want to bring you my full and complete version in this video. We're going to jump straight into it because I think this runs the risk of becoming a pretty long video, but before that there are just two very important points of housekeeping to get out of the way. First one is that this is obviously going to be very opinion based, which is kind of fine. It's not supposed to be absolute truth, but more of a basis for discussion. So you're definitely going to find places where you disagree with me, and I would really appreciate if you let us know why in the comments, that we can have a good discussion about this. I think that's really the most interesting part of making a video like this anyway. Second is that this is specifically for online matches. We get a lot of tier lists for like high-level tournament play, but I think a lot of us spend most of our time playing online, so it's interesting to talk about that environment as well. And the main things I think are different about online as compared to offline casuals, death matches, or tournament play is that you're trying to get one single win against a completely random opponent and then run away with it. You also have a bit more of native lag, and I think what that ends up meaning is that gimmicks become a little bit stronger and mix-ups become a little bit weaker because you don't really have the time or the opportunity to build the mind game. It's more about getting that damage in quick and then getting out of there. You also have a lot of lows that are sort of in the semi-seeable range, and because of a little bit more lag, those become a bit more dangerous in the online environment. Well, with that out of the way, I think we're going to jump into the list. I'm just going to give you the whole thing right away, not reveal it gradually, because I think some people are going to want to just, take a look at it and then move on with their day, which is fine. But if you want to stick around, I'm going to give you my discussion of why I've made it the way I have. So this is the way I've constructed the list. It has 4 tiers as opposed to 5. If I had made 5, that might have been a little bit more nuanced, but also very difficult to make because there are a couple of characters that are super difficult to place in a 5-tier list. So I've made it with 4, and I'll just say quickly that the S tier is the only tier where I've placed the characters in order of strength. So in the S tier, I think Devil Jin is number 1, Xiaoyu is number 2, and Dragunov is number 3. And then the other tiers, it's all jumbled. So Hwoarang is not weaker than Geese in my opinion, necessarily. Oh, he actually is, but that's a coincidence. There's no order inside the A, B, and C tier. I think we're going to start at the top and work our way down, just bring up the sort of controversial picks where I might need to explain myself. The absolute top character, the number 1 in the game, is Devil Jin. This hasn't changed. My view of Devil Jin is that he is the strongest character in the game. He has his Hell Sweep, which is basically an unseeable low launcher. It's not designed to function quite that way, but because of Tekken 7 having walls, having rage drives, having rage arts, it kind of works out as being an unseeable low launcher anyway a lot of the time. You then have your up forward 4, which is an amazing mid that you can mix up all of your low options with, so you can stay dangerous. It gives you guaranteed damage and a knockdown, but it will not give you enough minus frames on block that you're punishable. It's safe, I could say simply, which makes it an amazing mid that you can mix up all of your options with. You then also have access to the Electric Wind Godfist, the fastest and best with Punisher in the game if you can pull it off correctly. You get the Flash Punch combo, which is like the best 10-frame block Punisher in the game, but you also have good block punishment from while standing, at -12 for standing, and so on. So just a lot of things that stand out as being categorically better than what other characters get access to, and I think that's why he should be considered the best character in the game, and I don't think it's going to change going forward. Xiaoyu I've placed at number 2. And she's also a character that is sort of characterized by the fact that she plays her own game and plays by her own rules, and she doesn't necessarily have to abide by the rules that all the other characters have to, mainly because of her insane crush properties. But an interesting thing about Xiao Yu is that she's known for being this, evasive and tricksy character who can move on and do all kinds of stuff, but she's also a very solid character apart from that. So you basically have a solid and powerful character, and then you give her all of this unique sauce on top of that, and she just becomes a complete monster. I think if you want to have a character who specializes in something, in Xiao Yu's case, evasiveness and being a small target, then they need to be bad at other things. That's how you make, a balanced character design, in my opinion. If, King is going to be a grappler, then his grappling should be very good, and his non-grappling should be less good than what you would see on a normal character. But with Xiao Yu, she's just very, very good and powerful at everything, while simultaneously being like slippery as a goldfish. Great damage, a lot of situations where she can collect unscaled damage on the ground with low pokes that become guaranteed and stuff. So very, very dangerous. And she doesn't have any shortage of gimmicks and stuff she can throw out in a panic to steal a win online either. I mean, we could talk about Waning Moon and all kinds of stuff. So yeah, I'm gonna move on to Dragunov, who's famous at this point for being the easiest, best character in the game. So one of the most low execution characters in the game, while simultaneously being one of the most powerful. One thing that gets brought up when you call Dragunov low execution is that if you want to do true instant while running 2 from range 0, that's difficult to do, but it's also not a technique that you have to rely on to do well with him, especially not online. You have running 2, up forward 4, down 2, your 1+2 grab, and your back 1+2 for when you need plus frames. And that's like a 5-move package that is going to make you a complete monster. And because it's so safe and it covers so many options, if you can keep on rotating this very complete package, an opponent who just doesn't have moves that are this good and has to think and strategize about how to deal with you is gonna, in most cases, in a random scenario between 2 players online, end up with Dragunov having the advantage and getting the win. So I think that's why he deserves to be considered top tier. His running 2 is too good. It's a move that is categorically too good right now. It should be, I mean, it would still be good if it was a duckable high, but it's not. So yeah, very, very strong character. If we're going to move on to the A tier, I think there are a couple of picks here that might be a little bit controversial, so I want to pick those out and talk about them specifically. Geese is probably the first character who might stand out as being a little bit controversial, maybe not, but he's one of the characters that I haven't talked about yet in one of my tier lists, but I think he deserves to be here. What stands out about Geese, he has, I think, the highest combo damage of any character in the game when he has meter. I think the only character who can sometimes keep up with him is Akuma, but then everybody else loses out. And he can actually do pretty reliable death combos even if he has access to one breakable wall or balcony. But then, same way as, Xiao Yu has her evasiveness on top of a good package, Geese is extremely good with meter, but doesn't really suffer enough for not having access to meter. Good pokes and punishment, very powerful lows, a lot of guaranteed damage, great wall game, his block punishment is above average, he has a very usable projectile, and when he has meter, he just turns into a complete monster who can do very, very overblown amounts of damage. And I think that's the reason we're seeing a bit more Geese in tournament lately. In high-level tournament play, Geese is sort of gradually becoming more and more common, and I think that's because the community is waking up to the fact that he is an extremely good character. Jack and Kazumi, an argument can actually be made for them to actually be placed higher than what they are right now in the top tier along with the top 3, but I think that the top 3 actually stand out as being even slightly better than these characters, but they're just super effective and super simple characters, where much like Dragunov, who we talked about before, can use a small collection of moves and feel very calm, collected, and confident that it's going to work. And if they're playing against an opponent who has to get creative to create their damage, then they just end up with an inherent advantage. Claudio is in this tier, which you might think is a little bit weird. He's not typically considered very high tier, but I think he deserves to be here, especially for the online environment. He's also characterized by simplicity. His forward 3 is a go-to move for almost any situation, whether you need, just a mid to mix up your lows, or you're running 2. A homing move, a wall splat move, a keep out tool, like anything, this move can do it for you. It's a low crushing move that's going to do you a lot of favors for Oki if you're looking to go over like get up 3. Very, very powerful. You don't get super high damage on your standard combo, but you're always going to end up with Starburst every time you get a launch, and when you do have Starburst, because you're so scary, it's almost like you get free mix-ups, because your opponent, even if you're not doing anything, is going to be so scared of the Starburst that you get a free inherent advantage again, which is very, very good online. So I think Claudio is a character who is a little bit underestimated, but very, very good, and especially good for those online matches where your opponent's not going to have the time to build their strategy around what you're doing. Is that it for this tier? Oh, I guess we should talk about Kazuya, because I hear a lot of people saying that he's not all that powerful in this game, and I don't quite see that, because I think that Kazuya has, again, the Flash Punch combo for the Mishima, so like the best jab string in the game. It's categorically the best while standing launcher at 13. I mean, Josie has something similar, but she has to like do an awkward combo that's going to drop a lot of the time, not do a lot of damage. Kazuya just has a launcher that works for 13 from while standing, so that's categorically better than what most people get. He has a Hell Sweep and he has the Electric, and the Electric, again, a move that's just categorically better than what most characters get, if you know how to perform it reliably. But we're going to assume, if, we're talking about this tier list, that if you're a Mishima player, then you know the basics of how to play a Mishima, right? So I don't think he can be placed any lower. I think he's very good, despite the fact that he does have a weakness to sidestep left. It's not like he struggles to, fill that hole if he knows how. So I think he's a very, very strong character and deserves to be up here. I think that's it for this tier, and we're going to move on to the B tier. I think the thing that maybe stands out here is that I've placed Kuma and Panda in this tier. I've said in a couple of my videos before how I think that Kuma and Panda are probably the strongest of the bottom tier characters, but I've thought about it enough now, and I feel that I want to place them actually not in the bottom tier, but a bit higher. The reason I think they work better than the other low tier characters, and you can tell I'm losing my voice right now, so I'm going to have a drink here, is that what you're trying to do with Kuma and Panda a lot of the time is mix your opponent up from hunting stance, which is really powerful and can lead to a lot of damage. But then the very, very nice thing, if you are a bear player, is that the moves that you want to do, the best moves you have when you're not in hunting, will transition into hunting. So you're doing running 1+2, you're doing back 1, the power crush, you're doing down back 2, and all of these great moves give you the option of going into hunting. So the moves that you would be doing anyway feed directly into the strategy that you want to apply, and so I think that's very good. You can play a good whiff punishment game because you have back forward 1 and down forward 2-1, good lows and great damage. I think the wall game is there too, so I think Kuma and Panda are actually not bottom tier characters in this game, and it would probably be more obvious if more people were prepared to use them. I think Heihachi is the weakest Mishima and deserves to be down here. This is also where I've placed Noctis, and I have a lot of problems with Noctis right now. I talked about how I thought his character design was pretty cool and pretty focused in the beginning, but I've just liked him less and less the more I've seen of him, because he has a couple of very annoying moves that are unreasonably effective right now. So I would like to see those changed, but if you change them, then he has nothing else that's good, and he just becomes a bottom tier character right away. So to make him feel like a character that functions better, you would actually need to change a lot of stuff around with him and maybe give him a couple of new moves, and that's not going to happen. So it's kind of unfortunate, because you do like annoying gimmicks and then you don't have anything else, but the gimmicks are good enough that you're going to be able to stay out of the bottom tier and do quite well online. So unfortunate. And then I think the rest of the picks here are pretty obvious. Shaheen is maybe a little bit low for some people. He was the best character, the S+ character in the vanilla version of Tekken 7 Arcade, but then he got nerfed, and I honestly think he is now just vanilla ice cream and cornflakes. Standard down forward 1, standard counter hit 4, standard down forward 2, standard 15 frame hop kick, even though it has good hitbox. And the only thing he has that stands out that isn't very super generic Tekken is his slide. So that's the one thing he has that stands out, but that's shared by, you know, Lee and Law, and it's not doing Lee enough favors that he gets to be considered strong. So I think Shaheen actually belongs here. Just, I think the sort of most generic character in the game, very strong, but you also have to be like a good player to be strong with him. You need to be able to apply fundamentals and know what you're doing, because he's not going to do you any inherent favors, in my opinion. Very good combo damage though, especially with the wall, but even without it, he will reliably give you above 65 off 15 frame launches, which is very high. So that's a good thing about Shaheen. And if we're going to move on to the bottom tier, I think most people are used to seeing Lars, Chloe, and Gigas down here. Lars and Gigas, I think, might need to be looked at and deserve to get some buffs. Chloe, I think, is actually very well designed, and I like the way she functions. She has a lot of cool things she can do. She feels like a complete character. She's just not a very strong character, and that's fine. You know, some characters are going to have to be the weakest. No matter how much you buff and change around, somebody's going to end up near the bottom, and Chloe is there, but she's, I think, pretty cool. And if you enjoy playing characters in this tier, don't let this list intimidate you. You can do really well with them. You just have to work a little bit harder. And then Miguel, Yoshimitsu, and Lee are arguments can be made for them to be placed higher, but I think they belong down here. I think Yoshimitsu, we've talked about it recently, has extremely awkward and unnecessarily poor combo game and wall game, and then he has a lot of crazy gimmicks, but if you can get around his gimmicks, what else does he have? Kind of generic below average stuff for the most part. Miguel has a lot of really cool stuff. You know, he's one of my favorite characters, but he, when he attacks, has to run the risk of eating very heavy punishment. So he either guesses right and does a lot of damage, or guesses wrong and eats a lot of damage. And if you compare that with a higher tier character like Dragunov, for example, who either deals a lot of damage and wins the round, or is completely safe because he got blocked, he doesn't need to put himself at a risk to apply his offensive package, but Miguel always puts himself at a risk. He's either duckable or block punishable, and so that's why he ends up down here. And Lee, again, I'm not an expert on Lee. In my buff video I talked about how I don't really have a handle on him, but he does seem to be unnecessarily weak. And even though he's cool, he's underused, and I think that's because he's awkward to use, kind of high execution, but then on top of that he also doesn't get to be very good. So I think he belongs down here as well. I think that's going to wrap it up. Is there anything else that stands out here? I don't think so. I think it makes sense. So that's going to be my discussion of the current tier list. Please feel free to contribute with your comments. I know you have plenty, and I'm looking forward to reading them. Also, let me know what you want to see for my next character guide, because I have a couple of things I'm working on and I'm sort of not sure what I want to go with. So definitely let me know about that as well. But for now, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys again very soon. Bye bye for now.